Amy Collins here with Free Advice Friday. Hope you guys all had a great week. I got a number of questions from someone named Jay last week, but Jay was kind enough to send me the questions via email, but he did it during the session and I didn't see them. I feel terrible about that. So I'm going to answer his questions first, just so we can knock a few of these off. But while I'm answering Jay's questions, I would love it if you'd put your questions into the question box. Feel free to ask me anything. That's what today is all about. Today is about asking me anything that you need to know, and anything I don't know. I promise I won't tell you I do. We'll figure it out together. I also want to thank you guys for your patience. It took me a couple weeks to get the last few Free Advice Fridays up on the website and on the YouTube channel, but we are doing that now. All right, so let's get started. Jay is saying that he would like me to explain the difference between people or organizations proposing to be development allies in one's writing career. What he's talking about is people who are former editors who want to be insiders to help talent move forward, to consult, and others to help unknown authors develop, he says, sought after commodities. I'm assuming we're talking about agents. What is the differences between an editor agent, an agent, a legal agent representative? Kind of how does that work? I can give you, Jay, a very, very simple explanation of this, but it is extremely simplified. For more information, I would highly recommend that you guys go to agentquery.com. I'm going to put that URL in the chat box. Agentquery.com is a fantastic resource. And even though I know that Writer's Digest and writersmarket.com, they're going through a little bit of a glitch right now. Looks like they're going to be sold through the bankruptcy courts. There is so much content in Writer's Digest and writersdigest.com about this exact topic. But here is my overview of what you want to look for and kind of what's happening. Agents, in many, many, many cases, are quite often former editors. Agents will quite often come from the editorial side of a house because they have been trained and they have learned exactly how to spot good writing and to spot a diamond in the rough, as it were. So quite a few agents start out as editors. So having an editor move into the agenting world is not unheard of. It's not in any way, shape, or form something to be suspicious of. That's usually how it works. Agents, up until the last few years, almost exclusively worked on a cut, on a commission. They would work for an agency and they would review manuscripts and they would make an offer to agent a writer. And in exchange, they would pitch, they would put all the work in, but whatever they sold the manuscript for, the agent would take 15, 20%. It varied. Sometimes it was 10%, sometimes it was 25. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I mean, it ran the gamut. But 15 to 20% over the last few years. It used to be a smaller percentage a few years ago. And it may be a higher percentage in the future. But the agent world has changed, and the agent business has changed, and agents are dropping like flies. They cannot make a living anymore on a percentage basis. There are so many manuscripts coming at them, and a lot of these manuscripts could actually turn into something amazing, but they need a lot of work. They need polishing, and they need a great deal of back and forth. And while I wish it was 1969 all over again, and agents, had the freedom to sit around and work with an author till they were ready, they can't now. So if you want to work with a particular agent who has editorial experience, then that's great, but you probably are going to have to pay them for their time. And that is a very reasonable request on behalf of the agent with editorial experience. Or you can hire your own editor and take the agent's notes and come back to the agent. I mean, you can do that as well. But an agent editor is not really a thing. They're still an agent with editorial suggestions. And if they've agreed to work with you, then you will pay them for their time to do that. Agents making introductions to other people in exchange for a small percentage of whatever deal happens still is going on. Your agents can introduce you to a screenwriter that maybe you can partner with, and if you sell the screenwrite, then you give them a cut. That also happens. And there are people such as my friend Anna Termini that I talked about last week that Mary's talking about here. Apparently Mary connected with her, and Anna is going to be negotiating editorial contracts for her, which is wonderful. Nice job. I'm so thrilled. But Anna charges for her time. She is a contract expert. She's been doing this for 22 years or more. Sorry, Anna, that I blew your long time in the industry out there. But she does not do this for a cut. She does this for a fee. And if it's going to take her half an hour, she'll charge you for half an hour. And if it's going to take her 3 hours, she charges you for 3 hours. So you can hire an agent to help you negotiate contracts. So that, Jay, is what I hope is short version of how we're going to split out the old way that agents worked, the new way that agents work, and I hope that that's a good answer to your question. All right, next question. And Mary, you are very welcome for the introduction. I think that Anna's wonderful, and I hope it works out for you. And as I told you guys before, if you reach out to Anna and it's not a great fit, I know other people I can introduce you to. All right, so Sonia asks, with the marketing plan in place, she's struggling with the decision on prioritizing next moves. In her list of things to do is translating the book into Spanish, recording the audiobook, and writing the next book. What would be the most beneficial sequence? I have actually, Sonia, we've spent a couple weeks together now, and so I really feel like I've gotten to know you and your goals. I would strongly recommend that you write your next book. Write your next book. Get started on that. Because someone like you with so much knowledge and so much wealth to offer, you are not going to reach your success. You're not going to reach your prime saturation in the market with just one book. You're going to need several products. You can do white papers. You can do an entire next book, but I would suggest you constantly, you keep writing and you constantly work on the next book. Never stop working on the next book. After that, recording the audiobook is very, very important. And you can actually get someone else to do this for you. There are people who, in exchange for 50% of a cut, will actually be a voiceover artist for you. And they're really good at it. So you might want to consider going to findawayvoices.com, Findaway Voices. You might want to consider going to ACX if you are okay with being Amazon exclusive. So recording the audiobook is number 2 in terms of what I would do in order if you're going to do this one at a time. And then translating your books into Spanish would be number 3. And it's not that I don't think everyone needs your advice in Spanish, but I think what's going to get you the biggest bang for your buck and the most attention, because with a new book, you have an opportunity to approach the media all over again. And this time, perhaps do it with a little more focus than you did last time. So you have a chance to almost get a do-over or a mulligan. And recording the audiobook gives you a third opportunity to release your book and to talk about your book and to get press into media. Releasing your book in Spanish is extremely helpful, but that's a much smaller market that you're going to get to announce to. And so if I was prioritizing, that would be the order I would go in. All right. So those are the questions that I have so far. It looks like there's quite a few of you on the line. Let's see who's here today. Let's see, attendees. Ellen and Kate and, oh, Cheryl. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. Stephen, always a pleasure. All right, let's see. Stephen does have a question here. He's looking into working out the logistics to have people help call libraries, companies, other venues, and the rent was cost prohibitive. Yes, that's true. Having someone work for you in your location, in your own home, is quite problematic legally, and hiring a rent person. Why wouldn't you hire someone 1099 to work from home? You can, there's tons of people. I mean, I have people who work from home all the time for me. There's a woman I love who I use in Stacy, and she's down south, and Luana is also, she's in Atlanta. And you can hire people that on your own, and they can work from their own home instead of coming to your location. Having a call service is, you can use places like People Per Hour, People Up, People Per Hour. These are great services. I don't know. I've never used them myself for calling. I've used them to send out emails, but I've never used them for phone calls. But I love People Per Hour. I've used them in the past, and I like them. But I would suggest that you try and find someone who will just work from their own home. There's lots of them out there. Yeah. Stephen is concerned that if people use their own personal phones to contact libraries, they'll be called back at random times when they're not prepared to speak, and you'd lose the contact. Well, there's a simple way around that. Stephen, this is what I do. I set up, it's $60 a year. It's not expensive. You set them up with their own Skype account, which is free, and then you get them a Skype phone number that belongs to you. This is all under you. You set them up with a Skype account under your Skype account. You get them a phone number that you pay for. Again, it's $60 a year. You get them a $3.99, a quarter subscription to Call North America. If you need them to call internationally, then I think it's $12 $12 a quarter. I don't hold me to that. It may be $12 a month for international calling, but I think it's $12 a quarter. But you can get a Skype number, you can get a Google number, and you can own this number, and you give it to them, and they make the calls from their computer. Buy them a headset if you want, if that helps. So you don't need, and I'm telling all of you guys, and I am not a legal expert. Remember, I'm an English major with a music degree. You do not want to take legal advice from me, but this I know for sure. You do not want to ask people to your own personal home to work for you. It is a legal quagmire. You are in violation of it could go so badly. If they slip and fall, if they call, no, you don't want that. They work from their own home as a 1099 vendor. And you work from that way. You give them a task. You don't tell them how to do it. There are ways. I actually teach an entire class on this. And I can't get into everything here, but what you want to do is hire someone and give them the instructions on what to do, but you don't tell them when to do it. They set their own hours, they set their own pace, and you decide if it's acceptable to you or not. And that is one of the things that separates them from an employee. And then, they invoice you at the end of every week or every 2 weeks, and you pay them. That is how I work with some of my outside vendors. And it works beautifully. I don't tell them how to do things. They have to supply the tools and the computer because they're running a small business, but it's a great way to get around the working from your home thing. All right, Sheila is asking, how do you plan and launch an online marketing campaign, and what sort of things should you be doing? Sheila, hon, I would love to answer that, and I'll give you a short answer, but it's a little like you just asked me, how do you build a car from scratch? I mean, that's a huge question. An online marketing campaign includes ads, it includes research, where your readers are hanging out online, and depending on the type of book, it could be different for all of you. And then advertising to them. An online marketing campaign also includes reaching out via social media, starting months ahead of time and connecting with other authors and readers in your genre. An online marketing campaign would include setting up an ebook discount program. In many cases, that's a great idea. In some cases, it's not. Depends on your type of book. So you set are you going to go with KDP Select for 90 days? And then at the end of 90 days, are you going to stop being exclusive with Amazon? And are you going to get in everywhere else for your ebook? Do you have an audiobook planned? If so, are you willing to offer it for a special for 2 or 3 days, at a deep discount? And what is your plans to promote that and to let people know it exists? Think about what the best-selling authors in your genre do and how you hear about their new books. You will often get an email from Amazon telling you that because you're a fan of Nora Roberts, that this new book by Kathleen McComber would be, Debbie Macomber, excuse me, that they think you'd really like this new Debbie Macomber book. Or because you bought a book about like Sonia's book, because you bought a book about divorce, we think this book about starting over, you know, and online dating after divorce might be very helpful to you. These are all things that you have to put into place. I am always happy to help people come up with a sales and marketing plan. You guys are more than welcome to reach out to me via email at amy@newshelves, and I'm happy to help you come up with something. But Sheila, an online marketing campaign includes so many steps that I don't think I can really cover here, but I think I hit the highlights: ads, social media, working with Amazon and with online retailers to announce to readers of similar books to yours, and figuring out a way to pay for all that, scheduling it, and leading up to either a launch, or my favorite way to do it is you do all that after the launch. Launch the book quietly, smartly, get all the kinks worked out, and then do a 6-month online campaign. That's what I suggest to people. All right, let's see. Steve is asking what sort of things to have on a media page for an author. I think that's a great question, and I actually have all that mapped out. I actually have, and I will put this on my website today. Let me write it down. I have a website map. It's a PDF of what I think all author pages should include, including the media pages. So I'm going to put the website map on newshelves.com/store. I'm going to do that today. So if you go to newshelves.com/store, here, let me throw that in the chat box so you guys have the link. Newshelves.com/store, and hit enter. There you go. By the end of today, I'll have a map. But some of the things you're going to need a high-res headshot to download. You're going to need a couple of them, a couple of different shots, a full body shot, just a headshot, and don't make it a shot. Do not use a photo. Like if I took a picture of this with all this in the background, you can have one or two like that somebody took of you on vacation. Don't have a photo where you're cropped, where someone's hand's on your shoulder. Get real photos. You need them. You need any press releases. You need full copies of any press releases that you've released on your media page. You need a downloadable Word document that's got different versions of your bio. I have a bio document that has three different, it's got the short bio. It has what I call a tagline bio, which is even shorter. A short bio is maybe 50 words, 75. A tagline bio is 25 words. It's very, very short. And then there's the long form bio that's 200 words. They can, you know, go nuts on. But I send that out. I've got that on my website. If you go to newshelves.com and look for my, you know, information about Amy page, you'll see everything that I put on. I put on some, I've got YouTube videos on there so the media can see what I look like on camera. I've got my one sheet, the PDF, and a JPEG, so that if they want to post my one sheet online, they can grab a PDF or a JPEG. And my one sheet is a full color design sheet that's got my face and a list of topics I can talk about and some quotes from people about how awesome I am. So take a look at all of that. But I would recommend that those things, a couple versions of a high-res photo to download, downloadable different versions of your bio, a list of questions they can ask you, a list of topics you're willing to talk about, some YouTube videos or some links to some online videos so they can see what you look like. This is the bare minimum. Those are some of the things I would suggest. All right. Let's see. Susan is asking, how do you approach libraries to purchase your books? And what advice can you offer to approach national chain gift shop to carry your? Okay. So, Susan, I actually have, and I'm happy to answer this, but I actually have a full, free, totally free hour that will walk you through how to approach libraries to purchase your books. It's a free video. It doesn't cost anything. I'll put the URL here in the chat box. It's called realfastlibrarymarketing.com/Amy Special. If you go to realfastlibrarymarketing.com/Amy Special, you will find a video where I walk you through the process. I teach so many classes on this, but here's the short version. You make sure your book is available from a wholesaler that libraries buy from. Ingram, Baker and Taylor, Brodart, Midwest, one of those. If you're with Ingram Spark, you're golden. Make sure that you've given Ingram Spark at least a 40, preferably a 50 or 55% discount, but at least a 40, because libraries need a 20% discount, and Ingram can't give them that. I would strongly recommend, if you're going to work with Ingram Spark, you give them at least a 50% discount or 55, because until you give Ingram a 55% or any wholesaler a 55% discount, they can't give the bookstores, including the major chains, the kind of discount they need to consider your book. You then approach the library via email. I walk through what to say. Go watch that video. I'm sorry that I can't walk you through it all right now, but you do it via email to start. That's what librarians love. You send out tons of emails. You will have to send out hundreds of emails before you start seeing dozens of orders. That's the way it works. People send out 40 or 50 emails and they don't get any orders and they get very discouraged. Well, that's because they didn't go long enough. I recently started going to the gym a couple weeks ago, and I'm hopping on the scale and I haven't lost 80 pounds. Well, I've only been going to the gym for 2 weeks. So my butt isn't as high and tight as I want it. My scale is not as low as I want it, but it's only been 2 weeks. So be patient. Don't send out 37 emails and then quit. Send out 370, send out 2,000, and then come to me and we'll work it out. So watch that video. It's at realfastlibrarymarketing.com/Amy Special, and that'll take you right to it. Somebody's asking what I use for my website. Do I use WordPress or another platform? I do my own website, guys. I host it on a site called HostMonster, whom I love, hostmonster.com, but it's designed on a WordPress theme. I believe the theme is called Small Business. But if, Wendy, if you're curious, if you want to know what the theme is I used, I will look that up and I will let you know. But I use WordPress, and it's all trial by error. I've learned over the years how to do it. And every once in a while I'll take a look at another theme and maybe think about changing the look of my site. But at the moment I like it, so I'm leaving it as is. So I use a WordPress theme. Thank you. Susan is also asking about gift and bookshops to carry your books. Is it a reasonable assumption that if you get a local bookseller that's part of a national chain, to get your book into the entire national regional chain? It is a reasonable assumption that will work if your book sells really well at that local store. If you sell 3 or 4 dozen copies of your book in a month, or if you sell even 10 copies in a week, it is extremely, you can go right, if you're in Barnes & Noble, if that's what we're talking about, you can go right to the small business office at Barnes & Noble, 122 Fifth Avenue, and tell them that you're selling 10, 12 copies a week of your book, and that you really think that they should put you in regionally because this one store is doing very well. If you depend on the store to recognize that you're selling that many, and then to actually take the time to contact their regional manager and ask them to order more copies of your book for other stores, that probably won't happen. It's up to you. So if you get a book into a regional store of a national chain like Books A Million or Barnes & Noble, you should check in every few weeks and see how the sales are going. If you sell 2 or 3 copies of your book in a month, that's really not enough to convince other stores to buy. You need to be selling more than that. So we're talking about, sell 10 copies in your first week, sell 25 copies in your first month, 25 or 30 copies in your first month. You can go to town to that national organization and get them to expand to you regionally. That's my 2 cents about that. Stephen is asking if there's a marketing event around the topic of his book that he put on, what can he do to attract people to the event and help make them aware of the event? Well, meetup.com is a terrific way to start. Meetup.com, Facebook ads. Here in Rochester, there's something called City Magazine. It comes out every Wednesday. The musicians and the artistic community just pour over City Magazine. Take out a couple of ads. take out some online ads with your local newspaper, or if there's a local zine that you think would, if your topic is a lot more business related, well then go to the local business journal and work through them. Go old school. Depending on how many people you're trying to attract. Posters, again, it depends on the topic. Posters, and it depends on where you're hosting it too. Are you hosting it at a library or at a local motel? I like hosting things at libraries or venues where other people already are that are in that community, so that I can put posters up and I can go from there. Advertise, as I said, boost your posts on Facebook or on Twitter and get the word out regionally. I've already mentioned that Meetup is a great way to go. There's a couple of ideas right there. Ask your friends to pass along the word. And then finally, see if you can partner with any companies in your area and give them tickets that they can sell. If you're trying to sell tickets to an event, have tickets available at their location. If there's a record store or a hardware store or I don't know, because I don't know what kind of event you're talking about, but if they were actually making tickets available there, that's another way to get the word out. Ellen says she would like to sell her book to educators, but doesn't know how to get to them. Ellen, educators, college professors, speech pathologists for third graders, help me out. Type the answers in below, and I would be happy to help, but the answer is very different depending on what sort of educator you're talking about. I'm so sorry. I will help, but I don't know how to answer that question yet. Stephen, I do not use a client resource manager at the moment to follow up on calls. I just use Excel. I've tried using CRM. I don't make enough calls a day that I need. I mean, I'm not robocalling 27. I don't have 27 people in a bullpen out there making calls. We send out emails mainly. We do not spend a lot of time on the phone. Emails is how we do things here. And calls that we use to follow up and emails that need follow up, we track on an Excel spreadsheet. Stephen, how to do a press release? How do you submit it? My favorite service at the moment on submitting press releases is called 24/7 Press Release, 24-7 Press Release. Great website. I use the $139. There's an $89 service. There's a $139 service. There's a $200 and something service. I use the $139 one. It's gorgeous. It does the job for me. If you have a press release and you don't need one written, you just want to distribute it, I've tried most of them, and 24/7 is my favorite. That's just my advice. All right. Ellen, you're looking for, it's a high school legal guide about criminal law and incarceration, lots of color images and short chapters. Okay, but who are you trying to sell it to? Who is your market? Who will buy this book? Is this, are you selling it to school boards? Are you selling it to guidance counselors? Who is actually going to buy this book? Again, when Ellen is asking, how to sell it to the education market, and she's got this great book called Good Girl's Guide to County Jail for the Bad Girl in Us All. It's a high school level legal guide about the criminal law and incarceration, lots of color images, short chapters. Ellen, that's great, but I don't know who the market is. Do you want to sell this to parents? Do you want to sell this to teachers? And if so, why would they buy it? So that's my first question. Why would someone buy this book, and what would it do for them? Or are they buying this book for someone else? Who would buy this for someone else, and what would it do for them? That's the next question I have. Sorry to be so weird, guys, but you got to ask yourself these things before you start putting a market plan together. Sonia's asking, oh, and just to remind you guys, I promised last week I was going to start expanding Free Advice Friday out from half an hour to 45 minutes. So for those of you who are saying, ooh, we're done, we're not, you can go, feel free. But as I promised, there's still some questions to be answered. So as long as you want to look at this mug and listen to this very annoying voice, then you guys are welcome to stay on. We're going to keep answering questions. Sonia is asking about capitalizing and what we call tagging onto media articles that features her, but it's not about her book, so that it can be used to book sales. She was just interviewed by the New York Times, and any quotes and photo may be featured on an unrelated matter. Well, this is amazing. Sonia, run, don't walk, and create a very cute square ad that you can put online, put on your Facebook page, put on your website, put it Twitter, Pinterest, everywhere, that has your picture and your name, Sonia Frontera, author of The Divorce Guy. I forget. I'm so sorry. I can never remember the actual name of your book. I know the topic. I get it now. Good Girl's Guide to Divorce. I know that's not it. I'm confusing everyone's books. But, you know, your picture and author of as seen in New York Times. It's a little vague. You are, the picture is you, and you have recently been seen in New York Times, but you're also mentioning your book. And I love that. Make sure that you send this article out to every other media contact you have and tell them that you would love to be interviewed on this particular topic, that you are the author of this particular book, and that you have recently been quoted and featured in the New York Times, and that this has caused you to realize that there's a real need for this topic. And I want you to reach out to LA and Chicago and Duluth and Houston and teeny little Round Lake, New York. I want you to go everywhere and send them a link to this article and show them. And I want you to put the New York Times logo on your website. I want the New York Times logo on every ad that you run from now on. I want it on your Facebook header. You know, if Sonia, I'm not going to use your last name because I don't have permission to, but your Facebook, your author page or your expert page on Facebook, because hopefully you've got more than just a personal page, and your Twitter header and your Instagram, all of them. I want you to create a header that has, you know, your name and, you know, as appeared in New York, just for a couple weeks if you need to. Boost it up. Go nuts. Oh, Ellen, you're trying to sell this as a textbook as part of social studies. Oh, I get that. Okay, well, then you have to go to the school system itself. You submit. Textbooks are not sent to educators. They're sent to a much higher level. It depends on the school system. But quite often, if you call the superintendent's office of your local school system or of whatever, you know, city or state that you're focusing on, you start at the superintendent's office and you ask them from, you know, where they get their curriculum from. And then there's a series of companies that provide textbooks, wholesalers and jobbers that provide textbooks. You then send your book to them and you get listed with them first. So if you're trying to sell in as a textbook, first your book has to be accepted by wholesalers, the wholesalers from which the school systems you're targeting that they actually buy from. And everyone buys from different, I mean, there's some big names, but they all change. So if, like, let's say you were focusing on Central Texas, or if you were focusing on the Chicago area, or if you were focusing on Idaho, you have to call the superintendent's office and ask them what wholesalers or jobbers they use from which they get their textbooks. And that's how to get started. You pitch your book to the wholesaler, get listed, and then you can go back to the school system and say, my book is available from academic, blah, blah, blah. I'm making that name up. I do not know the name of these wholesalers, I'm afraid, because I don't know much about textbooks, but I do know the process, and that is the process. All right. Let's see if there's any other questions. This time I'm checking my email real quick. Stephen, I see your email. Thank you, but I believe I've answered your questions. I've checked email. Now I'm going back to Zoom, checking the chat box, making sure I answered Wendy's question about WordPress. Any other questions, guys? Before we move on to our weekend, because I'm so excited about my weekend. I'm going to be here just for most of it, trying to get caught up. But I love coming into the office on the weekends and getting caught up. It makes me feel so much better. Sheila's asking how to approach schools to do author visits and workshops. Very simply. You start in the principal's office. Actually, in many cases, the vice principal's office is a great place to start. You'll get a secretary. You tell them that you are interested in sending over some information about an event that you run at schools, and a workshop that you do for schools, and who makes that decision there? Is it the vice principal's office? Is it the principal's office? Is it the guidance? You ask the secretary. They're lovely. They will answer your questions. They will give you a name, ask for an email address. If they say, no, we prefer it in writing, well, then you have to send them a paper packet. But it's a really simple process. You start with the secretary. You ask them who's in charge of making the decision, and then you email them a kit. You tell them what your talk is about. You have to have other people who have already heard your talk talking about how great you are. So even give the talk to 7 of your neighbors, but you need some quotes. Schools depend upon referrals, and they depend upon references. So show that you've got some cred. So you definitely want that. You want a nice executable. This is what you will get. If I'm there for 1 hour, this is what you will walk away with. What are the takeaways? What are they going to walk away with? Give them something firm they can actually hold on to, and say, if I come to your school, your kids will learn about leadership. If I come to your school, your kids will learn more about physical fitness. If I come to your school, your kids will learn about meditation. Give them a takeaway. And what are your executables? What are you going to do while you're there? All right, check out my webpage. If this was helpful to you, I will see you back here next Friday. Well, I will answer all of your questions. And I look forward to seeing you next week on Free Advice Friday. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.